Buckle in, because what I am about to walk you through is the most explosive Kendrick Lamar bombshell of the year, and trust me, you do not want to click away for a single second, because by the end of this breakdown, the entire narrative around Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and this so-called diss album is going to look completely unrecognizable. Kendrick Lamar just quietly became the most feared name in hip-hop again, and the way it happened is so surgical, so cold-blooded, and so precisely engineered that even the biggest commentators in the game did not see the trap they were walking into. This is not a rumor. This is not a fan theory. These are the receipts landing on the table in front of everybody who spent months screaming that Kendrick Lamar was ghosting the culture. Take a deep breath, because the story you were told about Kendrick Lamar is the exact opposite of what actually went down. Now, before we take another step, do me one small favor. If any breakdown on this channel has ever helped you see hip-hop with a sharper eye, hit subscribe, tap the like, and drop your read below in the comments. Because the algorithm is watching in real time, and every single tap tells the machine to push this Kendrick Lamar story to a wider room. Ride with me, because what is on the table right now is bigger than a leak, bigger than a rumor, and bigger than any single announcement you have heard in a year. So here is what actually happened, and I need you to hear it in the exact order it went down, because the sequence is the whole story. Somewhere in the middle of February 2026, DJ Akademiks hopped on a live stream, the same kind of live stream he has been running for years. And he floated the idea that Kendrick Lamar might have more music teed up beyond the Baby Keem adjacent placement everybody already knew about. He did not present a press release. He did not read from a track list. He did not name a release date. He did not claim Kendrick Lamar had called him personally to whisper about a diss album. He said, in the softest language a commentator can use, that he was under the impression Kendrick Lamar had something loaded in the chamber. That is speculation with a heartbeat. That is a hunch with a pulse. That is not a rollout. Real talk, that is a commentator doing what commentators do. But somewhere between that livestream clip and the 7th repost on hip-hop Twitter, the word impression got surgically removed, and it was replaced with the word confirmed, and the whole game changed overnight. Zooming in on how the Baby Keem angle got twisted, the same reporting connected Kendrick Lamar to a track called Good Flirts alongside Momo Boyd. That is a real, documented feature. That is Kendrick Lamar lending a verse. That is a placement. But somehow, in the internet's fever dream, a single feature transformed into a full Drake diss album with a projected tracklist, a projected cover, and even projected first-week numbers. Call it what it is. That is not analysis. That is fan fiction wearing a press badge. That is imagination cosplaying as journalism. Then you have got to add the second layer. DJ Head, months earlier, in August 2024, publicly pushed back on the entire idea that Kendrick Lamar was in constant communication with any commentator, especially Akademiks. When Head was asked whether a Kendrick Lamar album was on deck imminently, his answer, from the reports circulating at the time, was essentially not right now. He still gave Akademiks credit for having sources. He never claimed Akademiks was making things up. But he drew a very clear line between having sources and having a confirmed release calendar. Those are two very different things, and the culture has been pretending they are identical. A source is a whisper. A calendar is a contract. And in 2026, everybody has been treating the whisper like a contract. Meanwhile, the actual documented Kendrick Lamar activity of 2026 has been about presence and prestige, not press releases. At the Grammy Awards on February the 1st, GNX walked home with Best Rap Album. Kendrick Lamar also collected additional hardware tied to Luther, tied to TV Off, and tied to his contributions on Clips's Chains and Whips. That is verifiable. That is on the historical record. That is Kendrick Lamar stepping to a podium with actual gold in his hand, not Kendrick Lamar unveiling a mystery LP titled Iceman Cometh, Volume 2. The problem is the moment Kendrick Lamar appeared on that stage, the internet went into full detective mode. The tuxedo became a clue. The boxing wrap on his hand became a clue. The way Dave Free posted a close-up shot became a clue. Fans stitched every visible detail into a theory. But hear me on this, because it matters. A hand wrap is a hand wrap. A close-up post is a close-up post. Fashion and symbolism are not the same as a signed album contract, and treating them like they are is exactly how a rumor mutates into a fake headline. But let us slow down on this boxing rap for a full second, because this is where the theory got weaponized. People saw the rap. They saw Dave free spotlighted online. They said, this has to be the next era. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a personal reference. Maybe it is a visual signature. Maybe it is going to end up on the cover of something. Maybe it is going to be a music video prop. Maybe it means everything. Maybe it means nothing beyond aesthetic taste. What nobody, and I mean nobody, can honestly claim is that a piece of fabric wrapped around a knuckle equals 12 tracks aimed directly at Aubrey Graham. That would be like watching a man tie his shoes and announcing he is running a marathon by Sunday. Slow it down. Read what is actually there, not what your group chat wants to be there. Now let us give the Aubrey dimension of this its fair weight, because Drake actually has hard, documented material on the board. Billboard reported it. Variety confirmed it. On May the 15th, 2026, Drake released 3 projects in one motion: Iceman, Habibi, and Maid of Honor. The combined song count was 43 tracks. Iceman alone carried 18 songs and pulled features from Future and 21 Savage. That is not rumor territory. That is a full deployed campaign. That is an ICE installation in Toronto, a livestream rollout, a coordinated marketing storm, and 3 simultaneous album drops. When Drake supporters point out that their camp has a mountain of material in the field while Kendrick Lamar's team has, publicly, only offered silhouettes, that is a fair observation about visibility. It is not, however, evidence that Kendrick Lamar's supposed next move is a designated response album. Drake dropping a mountain of songs does not obligate Kendrick Lamar to answer that mountain with a mountain of his own. One artist flooding the feed does not require the other artist to flood the feed. That is a spectator's expectation, not a musical requirement. Then came the May 2026 platform incident, and this is where the internet completely lost the plot. For a short window, several Kendrick Lamar tracks, GNX cuts, Euphoria, Not Like Us, Luther briefly went missing on streaming platforms. Digital Music News reported that they were restored within hours. The outlet made it clear that no confirmed explanation tied the outage to Drake, to Iceman, to a lawsuit, to a secret settlement, or to any coded warning shot. The most likely answer, on the balance of probability, is a routine metadata or delivery glitch of the kind that hits every major catalog at some point. But within minutes, the timeline was flooded with videos claiming Kendrick Lamar had deleted the evidence, that the FBI was involved, that a legal team was scrubbing his archive, that the entire beef was being erased under duress. All of those posts got 1 million impressions. The correction, when it came, barely broke 100,000. That is the machine in one clean example. Chaos gets clicked. Clarity gets buried. And now the biggest receipt of all. As of the moment this video is being cut, there is not one verified Kendrick Lamar post, not one PGLang press release, not one label statement, not one official pre-save link, not one uploaded product page, not one confirmed cover art, and not one release title that establishes a Kendrick Lamar 2026 solo diss album as a real, dated, on the calendar thing. 0. Nothing. The receipts do not exist. That does not mean Kendrick Lamar is inactive. It means the announcement everybody is quoting was never actually made. And if a channel is telling you it is confirmed, they are selling you a certainty they simply do not possess. That is amateur hour content economics, and the audience deserves better than that. Now that the receipts are stacked on the table, let me pull you into the connection nobody in the room is making, because this is where the story flips from a rumor breakdown into something much bigger. Here is the real question. Why did this rumor detonate with so little factual weight behind it? Look at the sequence one more time. Kendrick Lamar's Grammy night lands in early February. GNX gets another institutional stamp of approval. The boxing rap starts traveling on social. Dave free frames the close-up. Then Akademiks speculates. Then YouTube channels wake up. Then fan pages inhale. Then comment sections start feeding each other. Then reaction videos start reacting to reaction videos. And by the end of the week, a soft speculation from one commentator has turned into a Category 5 hurricane of Kendrick Lamar is dropping in April. The rumor did not appear in a vacuum. It landed at the exact moment a hungry audience was preloaded to search for a new Kendrick Lamar era. That timing is everything. The internet no longer treats silence as silence. It treats silence as a blank canvas on which every viewer can paint their own version of the sequel. Kendrick Lamar moves quietly, so every visible detail becomes a hieroglyph. A glove becomes a concept album. A feature becomes a trailer. A brief outage becomes a legal chess move. A commentator's hunch becomes a leaked source document. And suddenly the whole culture is standing in front of a corkboard with red string, awarding itself a doctorate in Kendrick Lamar cinematography. But here is the deeper mechanic. Remember how the 2024 battle rewired every single Kendrick Lamar and Drake headline that has landed since? Before that war, Kendrick Lamar might have music coming was heard as cool. A Kendrick Lamar album might be on the way. After that war, the exact same sentence is heard as who is he aiming at? What is the target list? When does the response drop? The beef installed a permanent lens. Every future Kendrick Lamar move now feels like a chess piece in an ongoing tournament, even when Kendrick Lamar himself has not agreed to play another round. That is the ambient weight the culture has hung on his neck without his permission. And now zoom in on Drake's own choreography, because it is the perfect counterweight. Drake did not merely tease Iceman. He engineered a whole event around it. He built an ice sculpture campaign in Toronto. He ran episodic livestream unlocks. He dropped singles as pre-release bait. He rolled out synchronized social posts across the OVO ecosystem. Then he detonated 3 albums at the same time. That is the loud strategy. That is presence as strategy. That is volume as an ideology. Kendrick Lamar's supposed next move, in contrast, is defined almost entirely by absence. So the debate the internet thinks it is having about music is really a debate about 2 philosophies of visibility. Drake's visible campaign versus Kendrick Lamar's mystery cocoon. Loud rollouts create instant content. Silent artists create obsessive speculation. Drake gives fans material to fight over. Kendrick Lamar gives fans an empty room and lets them design their own furniture. Neither approach automatically wins a Grammy. But the algorithm, hear me on this, the algorithm absolutely adores a vacuum, because a vacuum can be filled with 10,000 thumbnails all screaming the same fake word, confirmed. Truth is, once Iceman actually landed, the entire temperature of the conversation shifted. Every Kendrick Lamar rumor, from that day forward, got framed as a possible answer. Even when Kendrick Lamar had not said a word. That is the invisible frame this rumor is being read through. The alleged diss album is not built from a Kendrick Lamar declaration. It is built from a public expectation that Kendrick Lamar owes Drake a reply. That expectation is manufactured by fanbases. It is not signed by the artist. And if Kendrick Lamar drops something conceptual, something spiritual, something regional, something rooted in Los Angeles, something built on family, something built on faith, something completely unrelated to Drake, somebody in the comments is still going to say he ducked the moment. That is the trap of a rumor. It rewrites an artist's freedom into an obligation, then grades the artist for failing to meet an obligation the artist never accepted. There is another layer worth naming out loud. The way this coverage moved from careful reporting to explosive posting is the second half of the story. Hot New Hip-Hop's initial write-up used soft language. Speculate. Unclear. Rumor. That vocabulary exists because responsible reporting protects the reader. But the second the story bounces to clip channels and quote tweets, the soft words vaporize. Kendrick Lamar may have plans is not clickable. Kendrick Lamar's Drake diss album confirmed is a headline that eats the algorithm alive. So caution gets stripped for chaos. Chaos gets recommended. Chaos gets stitched. Chaos gets reposted by people who never watched the original clip. Then the 7th repost gets consumed by somebody who says, everybody is reporting it now. No, everybody is repeating it now, and repetition is not verification. And this is where the fanbase incentives collide with the media incentives, and things get uglier than most people are willing to admit. Drake supporters can benefit from framing Kendrick Lamar's next move as reactive because it turns any future Kendrick Lamar release into a response before it has even played. Kendrick Lamar supporters can benefit from framing every hand rap and Dave Free post as a coded pre-strike because it primes the culture for a hero moment. Both camps are essentially trying to author Kendrick Lamar's next chapter before Kendrick Lamar picks up the pen. That is not analysis. That is a hostile takeover of an artist's narrative by an audience that refuses to wait for the actual music. Now buckle in, because we are getting into the details nobody else caught, and once you see them you will not be able to unsee them. Detail 1. The word speculate. What that word actually means is that the speaker is presenting a belief, a hunch, a professional read, not the possession of a confirmed announcement. That single verb is the difference between a report and a prediction. The channels turning Akademiks speculated into Akademiks confirmed are skipping over the most load-bearing word in the entire sentence. That is not a small edit. That is a lie hiding inside a synonym. Detail 2. The phrase, something up his sleeve. That phrase is intentionally broad. It can mean a feature. It can mean a tour. It can mean a soundtrack. It can mean a business move. It can mean a short film. It can mean a video. It can mean unfinished music that may or may not release. It can mean scheduled music 6 months from now. It does not point at Drake by itself. Broad language gives the audience permission to invent a narrow conclusion. And once that narrow conclusion goes viral, everybody forgets how wide the original statement actually was. Detail 3. The boxing rap. A rap symbolizes preparation, discipline, endurance, competition, protection. Fans reading a fight metaphor into it are not crazy. The symbol invites that read. But fight is not automatically Drake. Kendrick Lamar has been using combative energy in his art since Section .80. Hip-hop itself is built on metaphorical combat. The rap may signal a chapter defined by pressure and confrontation, but it tells us nothing about who the opponent is or when the release lands. Detail 4. The temporary platform outage. The forensic point is not that the videos went down. The forensic point is that they came back. Restoration weakens the theory that this was a permanent strategic removal. It weakens the theory that a settlement forced a takedown. It weakens the theory that a secret pre-release scrub was underway. Could there have been a rights issue, a metadata mismatch, a delivery hiccup, or a routine catalog audit? Absolutely. Could there have been a purposeful decision? Possibly. But restoration means the first dramatic explanation is almost certainly not the correct explanation, and the algorithm rewards the first explanation, not the correct one. Detail 5. Drake dropping 3 projects instead of 1 is not neutral information. It is a strategic statement. 3 projects mean dozens of songs, multiple feature networks, several audience segments, several chart angles, and a limitless supply of debate fodder for fan pages. That volume is exactly why the response album narrative feels so satisfying to some viewers. They want a clean scoreboard. Drake dropped a mountain, so Kendrick Lamar must return fire with a mountain. But Kendrick Lamar's process has never been obligated to mirror another artist's rollout. One weather system does not require the other artist to match its atmospheric pressure. Detail 6. The label "Diss Album" itself is one of the most manipulative pieces of framing in this storyline. Before a second of music exists, that label preloads the way listeners will consume the work. Every ad-lib becomes a shot. Every title becomes a code. Every silence becomes a threat. Every syllable becomes evidence. That label can trap an unreleased album inside a narrative prison. If Kendrick Lamar releases a project about family, about Compton, about grief, about faith, or about internal conflict, viewers will still run every bar through a Drake filter. That is the deepest forensic takeaway. The Diss Album story arc says more about the internet's addiction to sequel culture than about any actual Kendrick Lamar plan. Fans want Beef Season 2, with the same characters, the same scorecards, and a bigger explosion. But art does not owe the algorithm a screenplay. Now watch how the media outlets each spun this same set of facts into completely different stories, because their framing tells you everything about how the narrative got shaped. Hot new hip-hop framed Akademiks comment as a 2026 rumor, kept the word speculate in the copy, and emphasized that the exact nature of Kendrick Lamar's plans was unclear. That is responsible framing. That leaves the door open without pretending the album has already been unveiled. Hip Hop DX went in a different direction, pointing out the friction between Akademiks' claim and DJ Head's earlier pushback. Their coverage introduced a counterweight, essentially arguing that having sources is not the same as having a confirmed timeline. That framing is not a rejection of Akademiks. It is a request that a claim not be inflated past what it can carry. Billboard framed the entire moment from Drake's side, treating Iceman, Habibi, and Maid of Honor as documented releases with confirmed dates, track counts, features, and rollout details. Billboard's version of the story is a completed campaign. Variety mirrored that framing, focusing on Drake's coordinated live reveal and the combined song count. Neither outlet presented Kendrick Lamar as having announced a retaliatory album because no such announcement existed to report. Digital Music News framed the temporary Kendrick Lamar catalog outage as a mystery with competing theories, not as a smoking gun. Their coverage let fans speculate but refused to lock in a single conclusion. Now, some people are going to say, but Akademiks said he was speaking on good authority, so it is basically confirmed. Hear me. Being on good authority to speculate is still speculation. It may be informed. It may turn out correct. It may lead to something real. It may prove prophetic in 6 months. But it is not the same as a label announcement, a signed pre-order page, an official artist post, or a released cover. Those are different objects on the news shelf. And some people are going to say, but the boxing rap proves the concept. No. It proves Kendrick Lamar wore a rap. It may become meaningful later. It may not. A visual clue without confirmation cannot carry an entire narrative on its own. If you still think a knuckle rap equals a certified Drake diss album, you are not analyzing. You are doing gym cardio inside a fanfiction Google Doc. And some Drake supporters are going to keep framing any future Kendrick Lamar release as a reaction to Iceman. That is a convenient spin, but it forgets how albums are made. A project can be in motion for 18 months before an audience hears anything. A feature can be scheduled years in advance. A concept can gestate for a decade. The calendar does not prove causation. So the cross-verified answer sits clean on the desk. Kendrick Lamar may have music teed up. Akademiks helped spark the conversation. The diss album premise is not officially confirmed. Drake's Iceman era is documented, active, and public. Everything else is a battle of narratives. But here is what nobody in the mainstream media has the courage to say out loud. This is not really a Kendrick Lamar versus Drake conversation anymore. This is a fight over who gets to control the algorithmic story of hip-hop. The trending angle is not, will Kendrick Lamar diss Drake? The trending angle is Kendrick Lamar next album. That phrase is moving through the culture because people are not just waiting for music. They are waiting for a verdict. They want Kendrick Lamar's next release to explain the battle, answer Drake's rollout, close the argument, prove who won, prove who changed the sound, prove which fanbase was correct, and possibly decide the next 5 years of rap discourse. That is way too much cargo to strap onto one album, and it is exactly why the rumor keeps spreading. It is a pressure valve for an audience that cannot access the artist. Off the record, the mechanic is simple. When the internet cannot get to an artist directly, it tries to own the artist through interpretation. Kendrick Lamar's controlled public silence creates scarcity. Scarcity creates obsession. Obsession creates theories. Theories create content. Content creates ad revenue, engagement, clip channels, reaction videos, fanbase wars, and entire careers built on decoding what Kendrick Lamar really meant. Follow the attention economy. A confirmed album announcement is one piece of content. But an unconfirmed rumor about an album can generate 50 videos, a date theory, a cover theory, a producer theory, a feature theory, a Drake response theory, a why he is quiet theory, a why he is scared theory, and a why he is planning an ambush theory. The uncertainty is not a bug. The uncertainty is the product. And Akademiks, in this case, is not the villain. Commentators comment. That is the job. The problem is the platform-wide incentive that punishes nuance and rewards chaos. A thumbnail reading Kendrick Lamar may have new music is calm. A thumbnail reading Kendrick Lamar's diss album leaked, Drake is finished is a war siren. War sirens get clicked. Calm thumbnails do not. This is not conspiracy. This is math. The Drake versus Kendrick Lamar debate is especially vulnerable to this economy because both artists represent opposite relationships with visibility. Drake is one of the most visible stars in music. He can turn a live stream, a public installation, an Instagram caption, a courtside seat, a stray feature, or a release date into an event. Kendrick Lamar is calibrated in the opposite direction. When Kendrick Lamar appears, the absence before the appearance becomes part of the ceremony. So the algorithm assigns them different roles. Drake feeds the cycle with volume. Kendrick Lamar feeds the cycle with anticipation. One creates a flood. One creates a drought. Both can dominate the timeline for exactly opposite reasons. Big picture, the diss album rumor benefits almost everybody except the listener's understanding of reality. It benefits clip channels because they get a burning title. It benefits fan pages because they get an eternal fight. It benefits detractors because they can paint Kendrick Lamar as Drake-obsessed. It benefits supporters because they can imagine Kendrick Lamar unloading a knockout blow. It benefits rival commentators because they get a source versus source debate. It benefits the algorithm because conflict is oxygen. It does not benefit the person who just wants to know what is actually confirmed. And I already know somebody in the comments is going to say, but all rap is speculation until it drops. Fine. Speculation is normal. Guessing is normal. The problem starts when guessing gets sold as reporting. There is a huge gulf between I think Kendrick Lamar might address Drake and Kendrick Lamar just announced a diss album. One is an opinion. The other is a factual claim with an evidentiary standard. Skipping between the two is not analysis. It is misinformation with a beat behind it. The diss album framing also creates a lose-lose grid for Kendrick Lamar himself. If he does not mention Drake at all, viewers will say he ducked. If he mentions Drake once, viewers will call the whole album reactive. If he releases a concept project, viewers will call it a dodge. If he releases bangers, viewers will call it a chase of Not Like Us. If he goes personal, viewers will accuse him of avoiding the war. If he goes aggressive, viewers will call him obsessed. That is not criticism. That is the goalposts being moved by a forklift on a Sunday morning. That is exactly why the next Kendrick Lamar release is being treated as a referendum. Not because a single album can save hip-hop. Because the culture has already built a 2-hour movie in its head about what that album is supposed to mean, and now the movie is waiting to be validated. The next project is going to land in front of an audience that has been arguing about it for months without ever hearing it. That is unusual pressure, even for a decorated legend. Remember the Akademiks live stream. The reason it exploded is not that Akademiks discovered something. The reason it exploded is that fans were already starving for a signal from Kendrick Lamar. Remember the boxing rap. The reason it went nuclear is that visual symbolism feels like access when the artist is not explaining himself. Remember the platform outage. The reason theories immediately spiked is that Kendrick Lamar and Drake occupy the same cultural weather now, and every glitch gets read as a strike or a shield. That is psychological warfare without either artist needing to type a single word. Drake's Iceman era heightens the contrast even further. Drake handed the audience a giant visible drop. Kendrick Lamar's alleged next move exists mostly as silhouette. The real debate is whether mystery can outperform output. Whether silence can outshine 43 songs. Whether a future announcement can drown out a present release. Those are not just musical questions. They are questions about how fandom actually consumes attention in 2026. My read, plainly. Kendrick Lamar does not need to beat Drake at Drake's game. He does not need 3 albums, a public installation, a countdown clock, or a barrage of livestream unlocks to validate whatever he chooses to do next. Drake does not need Kendrick Lamar to answer for Iceman to stand on its own. The fan bases are the ones treating the other artist like an unpaid co-star. Drake supporters who insist Kendrick Lamar is irrelevant keep placing Kendrick Lamar in the headline of every Drake conversation. Kendrick Lamar supporters who insist Drake is finished keep measuring every possible Kendrick Lamar move against Drake's rollout. Everyone claims independence while staring directly at the other side's scoreboard. That is not freedom. That is codependency with better speakers. The truth is that the next Kendrick Lamar album, whenever it lands, deserves to be judged for what it is, not for the imaginary assignment social media stapled to it. If it goes heavy on disses, break down the bars honestly. If it goes elsewhere, stop demanding a battle sequel that the artist never scheduled. If it takes 6 more months, let it take 6 more months. If it drops tomorrow, let tomorrow be tomorrow. The culture does not need another fake confirmation cycle. It needs listeners who can tell the difference between this might happen and this happened. And that is the line the front page will not draw for you, so we are drawing it here. Now for the part that matters most. What is actually going to unfold from here? Buckle in one more time, because this is where the whole board starts moving. Kendrick Lamar is going to keep moving with limited public explanation until there is something concrete to announce. That is his operating pattern. That has always been his pattern. The rumor economy is going to keep getting louder because silence leaves acres of room for every influencer, every reaction channel, every fan page, and every alleged insider to plant a flag claiming they have the missing puzzle piece. When Kendrick Lamar does not immediately validate the diss album theory, the loudest voices screaming certainty are going to look desperate because they will be arguing with an artist who never gave them the premise in the first place. If Kendrick Lamar drops a feature, a visual, a single, or an album teaser, the internet will dissect every frame like it is a subpoenaed exhibit. Every producer tag will become a conspiracy. Every title will become a Drake clue. Every image will become a code. And the loudest rumor merchants will try to say they predicted it. Even if the actual music points a completely different direction, that silence will damage their credibility more than any diss track ever could. If Kendrick Lamar releases a project that does include direct shots, the temperature is going to spike into the red. Drake supporters will call it reactive. Kendrick Lamar supporters will call it an ambush. Commentary channels will run rolling 24-hour live streams. Rap Twitter will convert every line into a courtroom exhibit. And the first casualty will be anybody who pretended a 3-word fragment could unlock an entire record. If Kendrick Lamar does respond directly, the opposition will have to deal with what he actually says, not the rehearsed version they scripted in their group chats. If the music is sharp, focused, and undeniable, the he only makes one kind of record crowd will have to rewrite their entire playbook overnight. But there is another path, and this is the path people are underestimating. Kendrick Lamar could release a project that barely mentions Drake at all. He could pivot left. He could go regional. He could go cinematic. He could go conceptual. He could go deeply personal. He could pull collaborators nobody predicted. He could use the boxing rap imagery as a theme about pressure, discipline, survival, or self-conflict rather than about a rival. If that happens, watch the internet malfunction in real time. The people who demanded a diss album will ask, why didn't he respond? That question will expose the entire operation. Kendrick Lamar was never obligated to respond. The rumor was. The fan base was. The algorithm was. The artist was not. That outcome would actually favor Kendrick Lamar because it would prove he can force the entire ecosystem to orbit him without confirming a single theory. Imagine that. Everybody writes the sequel, and he releases a completely different movie. Zoom out to the broader industry consequence, and this becomes a case study about release strategy. Artists across every genre are going to watch how Drake's high-volume Iceman campaign performs over the long tail. How the 3-project drop holds attention 6 months in. Whether a big event rollout produces longer cultural legs than a surprise release. Simultaneously, they will watch whichever move Kendrick Lamar eventually makes to see whether mystery, scarcity, and a carefully calibrated public presence can still outperform constant content. The next chapter of hip-hop might be defined less by who posts most and more by who creates the most meaningful single moment. The culture is going to keep rewarding volume. It will also keep rewarding impact. Some artists will flood the feed. Others will disappear long enough that one post feels like an earthquake. And the commentators, hear me on this, the commentators are going to have to adapt or die. The era of stamping confirmed on top of vibes is going to keep getting exposed the second the official facts arrive and do not match the viral caption. 5 years from today, this cycle is going to be a case study in every media literacy classroom about the exact moment when speculation was mistaken for reporting at industrial scale. Mark that down. Kendrick Lamar's next official announcement, whenever it comes, will break the internet whether or not it contains a Drake diss. Drake's future moves will stay under the same microscope whether or not Kendrick Lamar answers them. The people trying to reduce this to a scoreboard are going to keep losing, because neither artist has ever built a career that fits inside a single thumbnail. Whatever unfolds from here, one thing is crystal clear. The rumor war has already exposed who is addicted to the conflict. The music, whenever it lands, will decide the rest. And the audience that can tell the difference between a whisper and a headline is the audience that is going to be right when the smoke finally lifts. So with that runway laid, tell me what you are seeing. Drop your read in the comments below on the Kendrick Lamar situation. Do you think a Kendrick Lamar album lands before the end of the year? Do you think Drake's Iceman era ages better than the first week numbers suggest? Do you think the boxing rap is a theme, a symbol, or a coincidence? Do you think Akademiks has real sources or a lucky guess? Drop your take. Argue in the replies. The smartest comment sections on the internet still live under Kendrick Lamar breakdowns, and I want to read every single one of your reads. If any of this made you see the story differently, hit that like button, tap subscribe, and turn on the bell so the algorithm knows to bring you the next breakdown the moment it lands. This channel lives and dies by the taps under this video, and you carry it plain and simple. Thank you for writing this far. Thank you for staying past the noise. Thank you for wanting the receipts instead of the rumors. And if you want to see the exact moment the Kendrick Lamar and Drake war actually shifted the balance of hip-hop forever, roll straight into the next one on your screen. Because I broke down the entire timeline of how Kendrick Lamar walked into 2026 as the most feared name in the game, and you will not want to miss a single second of it. Tap it now and let us keep this run going.